a long-term investor, you won't go wrong as far as Victoria is concerned. But don't expect a double-digit growth in the next 12 months in Victoria. That's probably not happening, which is what we are seeing in other states over the last 2 3 years. So that's my normal understanding. Unless you do something with the property to improve its value, just buying and holding over the next 12 months is questionable with the double-digit growth in any area.
And that's where it's not just about Victoria. Yes, that's a puzzle that will, that will take time how it evolves, because we are watching the market closely. All these things, every statement, government statement, cost, everything has an impact on it. But for investors, how can they balance between buying for capital growth versus cash flow, especially given the current market fluctuations? It makes that decision much more complicated.
Yes. Um, and that's why it's important, as I said earlier, to review your current portfolio. How much negatively geared are you? And what do you need in your portfolio next to continue to grow? What that means is that if stopping you to buy your next property because you're heavily negatively geared, so something has to go from the portfolio, right? Or you have to make some changes to that property to bring its position back into that digestible. But if you're not in that thing of making changes yourself and it's easy to buy and sell and get rid of it, then that's the way to go about it. And but what you choose next is important. That will help your portfolio. So in most cases, people who run out of borrowing capacity is because they are quite negatively geared. And to really balance that, we talked about strategies earlier that can really give you good cash flow and can balance that for you. There are also ways of how you buy the property in trust and actually see how you can get through some of the lending criterias waived off. You got to talk to the right professionals to continue to see how you can, keep borrowing without having to get stuck. And there are ways to do that, but it's just that you really need to tap in and speak to the right professionals how you can make this happen for yourself.
Wow. So solution is available. You just need to tap the shoulder of the professional. Hey, I need help. And this is the situation.
Yeah.
So help is available.
Yeah. Look, Puru is big in talking through all this, right? And he always educating his buyers to look at mindset. And this is all about mindset. If you don't have a millionaire mindset, it's not going to work, right? And it's important to first understand your risk appetite and really have the room to grow here and listen to things and be open to other things, and then you can work with the right professionals to make things work, right? And just on that, before we go any further on questions, there's one point that I want to make, given the topic is with stamp duty concessions. As I said, it's available to people who are first home buyers, home buyers, and also to investors. It is also available to foreign purchases as well. The stamp duty concession for off the plan, but what they don't get concession on stamp duty is the additional stamp duty that foreign buyers have to pay. That is not, there's no concession on that. It's on the base level stamp duty concession that others are getting. So it's important to make that point because a lot more in 2017, I know the government has actually made an announcement to boost first home buyers to get into properties. They put in this additional layer for to stop foreign buyers to buy a lot more assets over here, and they put a lot more constraints around that time frame going back to 2017. And I know it happened in real time at that point in time. So now this is the first change I have seen for foreign buyers to be able to secure something so they can actually bring in probably what the government is trying to do is to boost that inflow so that the more dwellings can be built and a lot more you can actually have the right type of tenants to be able to occupy these type of properties as well, essentially, so that it can actually get roof over people's head.
This is interesting, quite insightful.
Very interesting.
And there is no price cap and there is no income limit to this stamp duty scenario. So it is quite compelling for a lot of people because people will first see where I can save costs and actually looking at the overall strategy. For obviously, foreign buyers, they've got a stash of cash. They just put the money out there. And yes, if I can save money, why not? Because anyway, they have to go through FIRB approvals. And what that means is there's an application fee, then there is additional stamp duty and so forth. So any reduction right now, it helps the foreign investors to invest. And there will be lots and lots of companies that will go berserk over the next 12 months to try sort of get that funding into Victoria to help the construction take off faster.
Just on that, Anubhav, because this is, I think, a typical question for buyer's agent, right? People want to know. People who are, they call themselves educated via Google or Google doctors, Google property investors. So I have a question. Are there any specific type of properties or regions that offer better value for investors right now, given the recent market shifts? It's a very generic question. They don't want to talk about strategy or whatever. Like, standard question.
Look, I guess if you have land content with established properties with 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom in the right area, and land will always do better as long as supply is limited in the areas. You won't go wrong from a long-term perspective, especially if you've got a plan to keep that for 10 years, 15 years. You'll be fine. Just look out for the negative cash flow position on that property and have enough, ability to be able to hold that property, or then you can look at, commercial aspect as well, which gives you cash flow from day one. And we specialize under $1 million purchase price for commercial, so that can open up a lot more avenues for people who have, 300K lying around, whether through equity or cash, that can give them the position to be able to secure good retail style type of commercial that can give them positively get properties from day one.
And just on that, Anubhav, because you have been in this market for last 6 years, you've seen all the patterns, right? Post COVID, you did mention explicit patterns post COVID. Anything, are you saying it's becoming more riskier to invest, or it's getting simpler, or it's more predictable? What are you seeing the pattern?
I think I'm seeing a lot of FOMO actually, because whilst I've got 25 years of experience and I've been in Melbourne for 20 years and I've seen the markets move quite a bit, and it doesn't matter whether it was GFC or COVID. The recent events that are happening, which are outside our control, generally are allowing a lot more changes to happen. And governments have obviously taken the step forward to, spin whatever they can to bring in new policies in different states, and that is changing the consumer behavior, right, of how they're buying, what they're buying, where they're living, what they want to live in. But the trend that is clear to me right now is that smaller homes are becoming more popular because they are more affordable, right? And what that means is it goes back to the point of Jacinta trying to, create new dwellings in a strata type of properties, because not only on a small land you can build more, but at the same time it is becoming a popular thing for people who are singles, who are, maybe even married but don't have children, for that matter divorces, or even for that matter, people who are obviously vulnerable to the space of, low income earners, or even for that matter retirees, right? So yeah, so having that small spaces creates a market for people to be able to capture that. And there are a lot more baby boomers right now than they were ever there before, because people who came in 1940s, 1950s in this country are baby boomers today, right? The next 10 years, it is important that where they live is going to become their home, and they're going to downsize, right? And if you look at suburbs aren't built for something like that for downsizes at all, because you've got backyards everywhere, and they can't handle that type of property, right? They cannot handle that type of big houses, maintenance, and all that. So they need, in the same area, they need smaller spaces, like what Puru was saying earlier, right? But if you build too much of it, there's a problem,
Mm.
So,
right? So there,
yeah. So given these approvals for apartments and all this can take 6 to 12 months, and the stamp duty is given, there is a lot of up in the air.
well, that's exactly where the planning is also being right now being restructured, because
Hmm.
right from subdivision planning timeframes are usually that in Victoria takes 12 months to get an approval. They're overhauling the whole thing right now. Even some of the bodies like Victorian Building Authority as such is also going to be demolished, and it's going to be, I think, renamed, or it's all turning into one single regulator, and it's going to be called, it's a bigger watchdog, which is going to be called Building and Plumbing Commission. So that will oversee building as well as plumbing industries across the entire state, essentially. And what that means is, of course, they're not just looking at one thing, okay, just go build something, but they're also looking at, okay, how can we make things easier for people to subdivide properties faster than what we did earlier? And the whole thing with this 12-month thing is that all you need is a contract signed after 21st of October this year, right? As soon as that is happening, it's an off the plan thing that will tick the boxes. You're in it, basically. It doesn't mean that the building has to be completed by then, as such, based on my understanding.
Yep, we have a question here from Elliot. Don't you think this concession will be chewed up by the developers by inflating the property prices?
Always has happened in the past whenever things have come to the market like that. But right now, I'm sure if the watchdog, they're shifting that whole industry to look at things, what's happening. No one can control prices what developers are putting there, and it's a small amount to adjust against a 700-800K type of property. So you never know, it may adjust somewhere and get inflated. So historically, we've seen that happen. Whenever there has been a first home buyer grants or whatever has happened, we know that gets adjusted somewhere. So this is my personal opinion. Again, I don't have facts to sort of talk right now on this call live on socials, but we know that it is quite clear.
Interesting. Only 3 minutes left now, Anubhav. Um, any key things? As I said, that overall the temperament is people are watching, waiting. All the stars will meet. All the cosmic thing will happen. Then I will make a move. So, what is your statement to those investors who have the money but don't have courage to get in the market? They are just sensing, testing the water, but have not made a decision to get in. What is your message to them?
Yeah, look, I think they're missing the confidence factor, right? And I think to build the confidence, you need to speak to professionals, because if you can't figure this out yourself, something is missing that is not completing the picture in the head, right? And buyer agent's role right now in the market is pivotal to get you, and not every buyer agent can talk to that sort of breadth of spectrum of things. But if you choose the right partner whom you can talk to, discuss your situation, and who can give you a good breadth of things that are possible in your scenario, give you options that you can do, it'll help you understand that better. It'll give you an action plan. I have to sell one of these two properties in the next 6 months, and then in parallel, I can go and buy something else because I've got money, maybe in superannuation, if that's the right thing, based on the financial advisor or whatever. And people may not have thought through that, as an example, right? But you need to speak to someone who understands the property landscape better, and then give you options based on your current circumstances to add more confidence, and then hold your hand throughout the process.
And same thing, I believe you will agree, to build a portfolio, you need an A team, which you have. I always remember your A team definition, which is your accountant, mortgage broker, or a financial advisor, and a buyer agent to build a portfolio, right? So it becomes, we hold your hand and help you through the journey, right?
It's a starting point from a planning perspective, and then it sort of leads into execution with a lot more professionals that are required during the acquisition of the property, depending on what they're doing. But yeah, you're right.
Awesome. I think that's it for me, because I think there were quite a few questions, but you summarized them, you covered them from all aspects, because that's where your experience comes in, and above, because you covered it from 360-degree perspective. So everybody could relate to it. That's why I didn't ask you specific questions, because you covered a lot of topics in that statement. And I would recommend to all the audiences to go through this video, because quite of key nuggets in this. And yeah, and that's it. And Puru, anything from you?
No, I think it was quite insightful because we do a lot of investment work. Sometimes we lose sight of the challenges which renters and home buyers are facing. So from that perspective, it looks like the sunshines will be blocked by the big 3D rise of the city, which is inevitable. But at the same time, it's for 1 year, so it's too early to say anything.
Yeah, look, there is a real shakeup happening in Victorian industry, in the property industry. It is really important. My key message today is to really keep an eye on government changes that are happening. No tool can tell you what this will sort of end up doing, and how things will look like. And there's no AI tool that will tell you it'll grow X amount of percentage, because data in property, we know, is a lag. So you can't get that on real time basis anyway. So it comes down to experience, and really, diving into the understanding of what does this change mean for the property market in that particular area, and then doing the right due diligence to get the right outcome. It is a lot of work, actually, to really look at all that. So if someone who's really qualified, who's really a astute investor, who understands government actions and how that behavior converts into growth in property, can relate to what I'm saying. But a lot more people are just looking at a press of a button, tell me a tool that's going to give me a suburb, it's going to give me X dollars in X period of time. That doesn't happen when things are shifting on almost every second, third day. especially in a state like Victoria right now.
Wow. Amazing. And you're right, Anubhav, because we all are analysis paralysis guide. We spend 2 steps forward and 4 steps backward because the tools, the data that's available, and thanks to media as well, the way they are portraying the message. I don't know whether it is for the investors or in front of the government or for some other bodies. So moral of the story is there should be somebody who is working for you, looking after your interest. So look
Yeah.
for those partners who are genuinely interested in your growth and your strategies. Perfect,
Yeah.
Anubhav.
And
Thanks a lot for your time. And Puru, great insight, good questions. Thanks, audience.
Thank you,
all right.
Harshit. You're a
Thank
good
you.
facilitator.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
hosting us. Thank you. Bye.